I'm coming to you again today from Santa Ana, California, where I will be flying out shortly from. However, a great meeting last night, a great interview with Dr. Paul Crouch and his son Matt, along with Perry Stone. We had a wonderful time together. If you were able to tune in, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something out of it. Discussing, it seems like every time I come out of here, Paul's always want to talk about when's the rapture going to take place. So that's what we did. We talked about it. Did we ever talk about it last night? We got into it last night. Anyway, it was a great time. If you would like to hear their program, I think you can still go to the archives at TBN and you'll be able to listen to it. So if you missed it, you might want to tune in. In the meantime, there's a big story breaking today in Jordan. This one is totally unexpected. I was astounded by what I read this morning, but the story says U.S. units exiting Iraq deployed to forestall Syrian attack. Now, at least that's the excuse. As much as Bashar Assad has his hands full, after all, his troops have killed around 5,000 protesters over the last 6 to 8 months, and he has uprisings on his hands every day. So for him to think about launching an attack against someone else while he's wrestling to hang on to power in his own country, well, maybe he would do that to divert everything and to rally the troops behind him. I do not know. Nevertheless, as the American troops are pulling out of Iraq, they have diverted special forces to Jordan. Now, you need to understand the geography. You have Israel on the Mediterranean Sea. Right next to that, Jordan. Right next to that, Iraq. Above those is Syria, and Syria has a border with Israel, a border with Jordan, and a border with Iraq. Consequently, this is the hot spot. There have been a lot of threatening noises. Already President Obama, along with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, says that Bashar Assad must go, that he needs to relinquish power, that he has lost legitimacy. However, we've not been able yet to put the crippling sanctions on him we want to put on him that would topple his government, because he's got a couple of friends called China and Russia that refuse to throw him under the bus. So this story, I want to read that. Jim, did you receive my outline that I sent to you recently? Jim, are you with me?
Yes, I am. I did not receive your outline, but I'm looking.
Okay.
I'm looking at the story here. I downloaded it.
Okay. I tell you what. If you have that story, I'd like to ask you if you would to read that first paragraph. I want people to hear that for themselves.
Alrighty. As the U.S. completes its final withdrawal from Iraq, American Special Forces troops have been diverted to positions in Jordan opposite a Syrian tank concentration building up across the kingdom's northern border. As of last Thursday, December 8th, military convoys, air transports, and helicopters have been lifting U.S. troops across the border from Iraq. They have been deployed in position to ward off a possible Syrian invasion in the light of President Bashar Assad's warning that he would set the entire Middle East on fire if the pressure on his regime to step down is persisted.
So that's what's going on here, and the reason this is so important is because this shows where Jordan really stands in this whole thing. Jordan at times straddles the fence and exercises a lot of independence. But when the chips are down, Jordan is an ally of the United States of America. Let me give you a little bit of history here. There was a time many years ago, what was that, maybe 1971 or something, when Assad, Hafez Assad, Bashar Assad's father, he threatened to invade Jordan, and Israel went over and stopped the invasion. So Jordan and Israel are more closely aligned than Syria and Jordan. So Jordan is one of our best allies in the Middle East. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because there are specific prophecies in the Bible about the country of Jordan. And I felt like it would be really good in light of this development to see what the Bible actually says about Jordan. It's found in Daniel chapter number 11, verse 41 through 45. Now, this particular passage has to do with the reign of the Antichrist. The account of the reign of the Antichrist actually begins in verse 20 of Daniel chapter 11 and continues all the way to verse 45. I think the abomination of desolation that marks the beginning of the final 3.5 years is right around verse number 31 or 32, right in that vicinity. So we're in the Great Tribulation by the time you get to verse 41, but I want you to hear what this says. He shall enter also, speaking of the Antichrist, he will enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. What's that mean? Well, we know the glorious land is referring to the Holy Land. Now, does that mean he will invade the country of Israel as we know it? No. But he apparently will have a presence in the West Bank once the Palestinians are there. So he will enter into the West Bank. He will also have a presence on the Temple Mount itself, but he will not control Israel. How do we know? Because he tries to invade Israel at the Battle of Armageddon. You don't invade a place if you already control it. So he will have a presence in the glorious land, and it says, many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, the Antichrist's hand, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. Edom is Petra in the south. The Moab mountains are in central Jordan. And Ammon, the children of Ammon, that's the Ammonites, or Ammon Jordan, which is the capital of Jordan. So you can see that these three areas are all in Jordan, and the Bible says these will escape out of the hands of the Antichrist. So here the United States is. Remember, we're not in the world government beast of Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 through 2. That beast has the body of the leopard, the feet of the bear, the mouth of the lion, the 10 horns of the 10-horn kingdom, but no eagle's wings. Now, the eagle's wings were present in the depiction of end-time powers in Daniel 7, when those powers are depicted individually as separate powers. But by the time they merge into the one world government of Revelation chapter 13, the eagle's wings are not included, which indicates to us that perhaps the United States of America pulls back from its involvement in the world governmental system that we're moving into right now, into the process called globalization. So all this is very interesting. When you see us moving troops in, I have believed for quite a long time that the U.S. would be the protector of Israel and possibly the reason why the Antichrist would not be able to take control of Jordan, because Jordan and Israel are our two closest friends. In Revelation chapter number 12, when the Antichrist comes down against Israel in verse 14, it states that the dragon Satan, and he'll be using the one world government and the Antichrist as his tool, when come down against the woman Israel, the woman with 12 stars around her head, that's representing the 12 tribes, the Bible says that he will come against the woman, but there will be given to the woman 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into her place where she's nourished from the face of the serpent for times and a half. So what is this telling us? That means that when Satan tries to take control of Israel, she will go into her place. Where is her place? Her place is Israel. That's her promised land. And we know that Israel is not going to be out of the promised land during the Great Tribulation. How do we know? Because at the end of the tribulation, the Antichrist is going to try to invade Israel. That's the Battle of Armageddon. So Israel is going to be in her place and preserved, apparently, by the veto power of the United States of America at the United Nations. So they won't be able to touch Israel until clear up to the time of the end. Now, if that being true, since Israel is never going to fall under the power of the Antichrist, since Jordan is never going to fall under the power of the Antichrist, these are side by side. They're all together there. And since the United States is best friends with Israel and Jordan, and the United States has troops in Jordan today, as of this report coming from the Debka file, then we're watching the prophetic alignment of powers here for these last times. Now, there's another prophecy that comes into this too, and that's Isaiah 17:1, where it says that Damascus will cease from being a city. Now, when is this going to happen? You may be getting ready to see this happen right now. If there's war that surfaces between the United States and Syria and other powers,
All right, we seem to have lost a little bit of connection there with Irvin. You're listening to Politics and Religion, a program presented by Endtime Ministries. And our on-air number, if we get Irvin back, we'll be taking your calls in the next segment, is 1-877-END-TIME. That's 1-877-ENDTIME. And we've been reading from an article today called U.S. Units Exiting Iraq Deployed in Jordan to Forestall Syrian Attack. I want to look at the end of this article because it's kind of interesting. The Prime Minister of Iraq met with President Barack Obama at the White House on Monday and approved a transfer of the American contingents from Iraq to Jordan across their common border. Obama was therefore able to state after their talks, "We share the view that when the Syrian people are being killed or are unable to express themselves, that's a problem. There's no disagreement there." By this comment, the White House sought to stress that the Baghdad government is not letting Tehran twist its arm on the Syrian question. Okay, so once again, you're listening to Politics and Religion, a program presented by Endtime Ministries. And today we're talking about world events from a biblical perspective, most notably, again, the Middle East and where it all heads as we head toward the second coming of Jesus Christ and the Battle of Armageddon. We'll be taking your calls in the next segment if we get Irvin back. Again, that number is 1-877-END-TIME.